He was a Ronin. His lord was dead. His house was gone. No purpose, no coin, no place to belong. So Yamada entrusted himself to the sea, not as a hero, as a stowaway. This is where Siam's samurai begins. An elderly monk sits on ancient temple steps, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. A circle of wide-eyed children leans in close. This is the moment they look forward to each night before being sent to bed. Though they have heard the story countless times, they never tire of it. The monk looks at them. "What story should I share with you tonight?" he asks. A boy stands up with a bright smile. "Tell us the story of our great-grandfather." The monk smiles, amused. "Oh," he teases, "the pirate? The merchant? The mercenary who beheaded a Burmese general? Or perhaps the regent to the crown prince who avenged his murder?" "All of it!" the children shout in unison. "Start from the beginning," another child demands. The monk smiles, then closes his eyes, searching his memories. When he speaks again, his voice softens. "This is the story of your great-grandfather, a young warrior from a distant land across the sea, a land of steel and honor, where men trained their whole lives to fight. But before he became all the things you know him for, he was only 16. His name was Yamada. He stood at the threshold of manhood, though he had already surpassed many grown warriors in skill. Tall for his age and hardened by training, he possessed a mastery of the sword that few could rival. Yet despite his talent, he was not a warrior of status or command. He served as a humble palanquin bearer to the Lord of Numazu, an aging noble whose long illness had cast a shadow over his household. Inside the Lord's residence, the air was heavy with quiet grief. Family members gathered close, their sorrow restrained but unmistakable. Loyal retainers knelt in solemn silence. Yamada stood among them, watching as the final moments unfolded. When the Lord took his last breath, it was not marked by ceremony or grandeur, only by stillness. Outside, the samurai of Numazu assembled in the courtyard. These were men forged in loyalty and battle, yet uncertainty now gripped them. The Lord had died without an heir, and with that absence came a terrible truth. Without a master, they were no longer samurai. They were Ronin, masterless, displaced, and stripped of purpose. The fall of Numazu came swiftly. Forces bearing the authority of the shogun arrived without resistance. His soldiers moved with precision, claiming lands, estates, and power in the name of the shogunate. The house of Numazu ceased to exist, and its warriors were cast out. Among them was Yamada. No longer bound by duty or protected by rank, he became just another figure cast into uncertainty. He returned to his hometown, carrying the hope that something of his former life remained. But that hope was quickly extinguished. His mother had passed away years before his return. The truth had been deliberately hidden from him. His uncles had taken his inheritance, selling the land, and dividing the proceeds among themselves. His return threatened to expose their treachery, so they made a decision. They would kill him. The attack came in the night. Steel flashed in the darkness. Blood was spilled among kin. Yamada survived, but the cost was greater than any wound. Whatever faith he had in family, in belonging, was severed completely. With no home, no wealth, and no place left to claim, he drifted. His path led him to the port city of Sakai, a place alive with noise and motion. Ships from distant lands filled the harbor. Foreign voices echoed through its streets. There, Yamada became one among many, unseen, unremarkable. He labored as a dock worker, hauling cargo, enduring long days for little reward. Time lost its meaning. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The strength he once carried as a warrior became irrelevant. His life reduced to survival. Slowly, he sank into despair. His purpose eroded by hardship and isolation. Then, one day, something changed. He overheard merchants speaking of a distant kingdom far to the south, a place called Siam. They described it as a land of opportunity, where trade flourished, and where men like him, Ronin, merchants and exiles, could find a new beginning. To most, it was little more than rumor, but to Yamada, it was a way out. That night, he made his decision. Without farewell, without hesitation, he slipped into the harbor under cover of darkness and boarded a merchant vessel, unseen. He concealed himself among crates and cargo, abandoning what little remained of his past. With no name, no coin, and no certainty of what lay ahead, he entrusted himself to the sea. The sea is not kind to stowaways. It did not take long for Yamada to be discovered. He was dragged from the shadows by the crew and brought before the captain. To them, he was nothing more than a thief, a stowaway, to be thrown overboard without hesitation. They tried, but Yamada was not the man they thought he was. When they came for him, he did not beg, he did not grovel. He fought. Outnumbered on the narrow deck, he moved with precision and control, each strike measured, each movement efficient. One by one, the crew was forced back, disarmed, beaten, unable to subdue him. The captain watched, and he understood. Throwing this man into the sea was no longer an option. Instead, he gave a single condition. Yamada could remain on board, so long as he stayed out of the way. He accepted. He was not a passenger, nor truly part of the crew, something in between, tolerated but not welcomed. Days turned into weeks. With little to occupy him, Yamada began to help where he could, taking on whatever work was needed. The crew, who had watched him with suspicion, was stunned to find him laboring among them. In time, they began to teach him the fundamentals, and he began to understand the ship, the tension of the ropes, the rhythm of the wind, the quiet coordination that kept everything in motion. Without announcement, he became useful, and the crew began to rely on him. The captain took notice. Seeing more than just strength, he gave Yamada a task: train the men. Yamada did not make it easy. From sunrise to dusk, he pushed them relentlessly. Movements were repeated until they became instinct. Mistakes were corrected through repetition, not through words. There was no praise, no rest, only discipline. Slowly, the crew changed. They moved with purpose, they held their ground, and they began to fight as one, with structure rather than panic.